Rural Americans deserve access to the best of what our nation has to offer, especially health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families healthy. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.
Listen, all you New Yorkers.
Excuse me, taxi.
Okay, man, we're looking around.
This is the 77 WABC minicast.
Let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Oh, yeah. Let me talk about this, because this is an astonishing story, absolutely astonishing story about a UFO expert, a true expert, and unusual in that this expert is not some wacky civilian. He is UFO expert's disappearance in New Mexico is a grave national security crisis. And now the security crisis is, where's Walter's glasses? Where are my glasses? Look at this. The mysterious disappearance of a retired Air Force major general. This was a major general who had deep expertise about UFOs, who went missing without a trace February 28th. This constitutes a grave national security crisis, according to a number of very serious people. This is serious stuff. Local law enforcement said William Neal McCasland, who's only 68, disappeared after leaving his Albuquerque, New Mexico home on foot, leaving his phone behind in a missing persons investigation. This was a good-looking young man, healthy as could be. He didn't keel over. Something happened. 5'11", 160 pounds. What? What? He's 5'11" and 160 pounds? Oh, man, am I jealous. Blue eyes, major general. This is a man with some of the most sensitive secrets of the United States in his head. According to Ross Coulthart, said in his latest edition of Reality Check podcast. Adding to that, McCasland possesses deep knowledge about what the U.S. government might be hiding regarding extraterrestrials. Now, let me talk to you about Ross Coulthart. Ross Coulthart revealed this story on my weekend show Saturday night. Ross Coulthart works at News Nation. He has a podcast called Reality Check. He's a real journalist. He isn't like a guy who pretends to follow stories on UFO. Ross Coulthart, serious journalist, based in Sydney, Australia. Checks his facts, knows what he's talking about, and it is Ross who revealed this story on my show on Saturday night. And I will find the recording of it, and I'll play it for you in moments. Please, gosh, find it. No, I can find it. But I want you to hear it. He's in Sydney, Australia, a real broadcaster, a real expert, and he's the one who said this man disappeared, and nobody knows where he is. But unlike a lot of disappearances, a lot of people who claim to be experts on UFOs, Ross actually knows. And McCasland, serious major general, a major general disappears, an expert on UFOs. I believe it has a little to do with the fact that 2 weeks ago, the President of the United States, the best president we have had in my lifetime, announced that he was going to reveal all of the secrets about UFOs. He was going to tell the world about the UFOs. And a couple days later, like the next day, 3.5 million files vanished. Now he's on the hook saying, I'm going to tell you everything about the UFOs. But 3.5 million files have disappeared. In my opinion, there are two possibilities with the UFOs. One is either, yes, there have been downed aircraft, many of them over the years since Roswell, that have been taken by Lockheed Martin. Why am I mispronouncing that name? And Bell Labs and Motorola. The government sold them what they took down, and the result is that those companies can profit by re-engineering, reverse engineering the UFOs. I grew up with a dad who worked at Bell Labs in Murray Hill, New Jersey. And my dad made business trips. And then later, when I was in my 30s, I said to my dad, Dad, where'd you go on your business trips? And he said, I went to Roswell, New Mexico. I said, what? Like, what? I had heard enough late-night talk shows and watched the History Channel enough to know that this was significant. I said to my Murray Hill dad, I said, what do you mean you went to Roswell? Why? He said, well, the reason they told me made no sense because they didn't need to do it. I was sent there to buy up all the land in Roswell that I could. Well, why'd they tell you they needed that? It was to test the aging in the desert of copper wire. And you'll recall, until fiber optics, the phone company, which is what Bell Labs was, the phone company depended on copper wire to transmit phone calls and other information. That's how they did it, with copper wire. Copper wire is crazy expensive, and they needed to know how long it would last, how long it would be before they had to replace it or could replace it, because the goal was not what you and I think. The goal was not to see how long copper wire would last in order for them to constantly update the phone service and make our phones work. No. They couldn't get rid of the copper wire fast enough. The phone company couldn't wait to get rid of the copper wire. It was expensive. There was a 20-year depreciation schedule on it as a capital investment. They wanted to get out the fiber optics fast because then they could have many, many, many more services that they could charge you and me for many times over. All they could do on copper wire is diplex. All they could do is send multiple phone calls, voice calls down the same line. That's all they could do. They couldn't do caller ID, call waiting, picture phones, pictures, video. They couldn't do anything else. But now that they can, they're charging us like crazy. They couldn't wait to get rid of the copper wire. They needed to run their business, and that's why they needed to know, how long is the copper wire going to last? They couldn't get rid of it soon enough. They sent my dad out to Roswell, New Mexico to buy up all the land that he could. And he bought up a lot of land. But the reason he said they didn't need to do that, and this is where it gets very spooky, they didn't need to do that because Bell Labs in Murray Hill, the largest research facility in the world, also had the hottest furnace in the world and the coldest room in the world. Everything they needed to test the extremes of weather on copper wire was in the Murray Hill facility. They also had lasers, night vision, incredible insulation, soundproofing, whatever you could imagine in terms of testing was at Bell Labs. And future technology was sitting there in Bell Labs. Where did they get all that future technology? I've always believed that it was reverse engineered UFOs and that the U.S. government captured UFOs and sold some of them to Bell Labs, AT&T, sold others to Raytheon, Motorola, General Motors. They all got a little piece of the UFOs. That's what I believe happened. Next day or two, I say to my father, I had follow-up questions, as you would have. I said to my father, you know, when you told me that you went out to New Mexico, to Roswell, to buy up all that land, I have some follow-up questions. And he was just fine. And he looked at me and he said, what are you talking about? I never told you anything like that. I said, yes, you did. I'm in radio. I have an audiographic memory. Everything I hear, I remember. Sort of true. unless I'm being asked to do a chore or something. And he said, I never told you that, and there it is. The men in black, I'm sure, visited him. He also had the business plan for the Telstar satellite in our basement. He wrote the business plan for the Telstar satellite. There was a lot of spooky stuff around our house, but it was all based on Bell Labs. And Bell Labs physicists, who were all Hungarian refugees from World War II, all their physicists were Hungarian refugees. They'd come over for dinner, brilliant men. They'd come over for dinner, poorly dressed, brilliant men. And it was fascinating to hear them talk about all of this stuff. But they never said, well, this all came from spacemen. This all came from spacemen.
Rural Americans deserve access to the best our nation has to offer, especially when it comes to health care. Across every state and every community, America's rural hospitals are the first line of defense, protecting our families, neighbors, and loved ones. No matter where you live, hospital care doesn't clock out. They're there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Each year, America's over 5,000 hospitals care for millions of patients, providing 24/7 emergency care, delivering babies, cancer treatments, and other life-saving care that patients rely on. Behind every one of those patients are doctors, nurses, and caregivers working tirelessly to keep people healthy and safe. Hospitals are our community's lifelines. They employ our neighbors and keep our families' health. But now, some in Congress are threatening access to care. Tell Congress, protect patient care to keep America strong. Don't cut rural health care.